Welcome to Influences and Inspiration. And today I figured we'd kick things off with my all time favorite guitar player and biggest inspiration, Angus Young. So I got my SG out, and what I want to do is I want to break down some licks that Angus has been playing. As soon as they started with the Power Up tour, I'm binging YouTube videos and watching, the shows, and, you know, of course, geeking out over all of the solos, right? And, you know, along the way, picking out favorite licks and kind of, messing around with different ideas that I might catch Angus do. And so I picked one from the Power Up tour, and then I actually ended up picking two from the Power Trip Festival, which is where I saw them last fall. And so, yeah, we'll jump right into these licks. So this first lick that I want to show you guys, it's kind of funny because it technically isn't a lick, but it is kind of one of those things that caught my attention from Power Trip. And it's funny because, it's this overbend that Angus does. And, guitar players, we're bending all the time and stuff, right? It's nothing new. But it's just kind of like where Angus kind of places it. It's after this kind of flurry of notes that he does. And then it's kind of it's a pretty big bend. I don't know what gauge strings Angus is using these days, but it's like two steps. It's this really sweet it's this really cool bend. Check it out right here. Did you catch it? So that overbend that I'm talking about, is this bend right here. It's a little bit tricky. I'll see if I can play it to pitch. But it's really cool because it's after that kind of flurry of notes, right? So, really, all that it really is just, it's on the 7th fret of the G string, and you're bending it down. You're basically going to bend it down to the 9th fret, and then you're going to take that and then bend it down another whole step to the 11th fret. So it's really tricky because, you got to have your pitch right? So, I struggle with it too. It's one of those things I think that can kind of be deceptively tricky because it might not sound too tricky, but like when you're actually trying to do it to pitch, you realize it's much more difficult than it is. Does that make sense? So, it's that, kind of playing it without the bends. You got, that's what you're kind of going for, but you're bending it, right? So that's the idea. This next lick that I want to show you is it's something that I heard Angus do during Riff Raff from the Power Trip Festival. And not gonna lie, that's my all-time favorite AC/DC song. They hadn't played it live with Brian, at least publicly. So that whole moment was spectacular. But the solo, I was totally geeking out, very excited. But the whole solo actually is amazing. As soon as we got home from the festival, I was, looking at my footage that I took of the solo. I was going on YouTube, seeing if people got close-ups, and just totally, rewinding and wanting to learn that solo, note for note and get as much as I could. And there's a lot of really cool licks in it. I think any Riff Raff video you can find, because Angus is just going for it. It's not the same every time, right? So there's always something he'll do that, for me anyway, it just kind of catches my attention and just kind of makes me go, what was that? So I guess one of these licks, he kind of does it on the studio recording, but again, he's kind of winging it live. It's kind of complicated to get note for note, but I can at least show you the idea of what he's doing here. It's actually a pretty cool kind of connecting lick between some of the pentatonic boxes. So with this lick, it kind of goes by pretty quick. So I'll try and break it down as best as I can, but I don't even think, honestly, I have it note for note perfect. But the idea of what Angus is doing with it is kind of cool. And just something that I personally hadn't really thought of before as a way to kind of connect the boxes, or, the pentatonic boxes, right? So kind of with that, I'll show you kind of where his thinking is and kind of how it resolves. So kind of, I guess, if you want to kind of get into the theory behind it, um, it's almost this kind of diagonal way of looking at the pentatonic, right? So check this out. So you kind of have your root here, right, with A. We kind of have a little bit of a, the extension from box 2, right? Almost kind of majory, right? It's kind of going down to that root right there, but it's just kind of a diagonal way of doing it instead of going straight down, right? So he's kind of doing this, right? But he's going into box 3. So basically, it's from 9 on the A to 7. And then he's kind of doing this hammer on a pull-off thing. Which you could alternate pick it really fast if you want. You could do hammer-ons and pull-offs. That's kind of where your own personality can kind of come into play, how you want to do it. So it's kind of this hammer-on and pull-off, from 10 to 7 and then 9 to 7 on the D string. Almost kind of a Jimmy Page-ish, right? At least that's something that it kind of reminds me of. And then I think Angus kind of slides from 9, after he's done with that trill, he slides from 9 to 11 on the D string. And 9 on the G, and then 11 on the G, and then this is where you get into that major box, right? With the now you're in that B.B. King kind of major box, right? But it's kind of a higher octave, like of what we did here, So it's kind of cool, it's just kind of a different way to look at it. And then, so that's kind of the idea of the lick, and then how he kind of resolves it, at the end of the first part of the solo, at least you get the... And that's all classic Angus, he's always doing stuff in that kind of fourth kind of box, right? So that's kind of a cool way to look at it. It's just kind of a diagonal way of looking at the pentatonic instead of just kind of the boxes, right? So if you are having trouble, looking at the pentatonics and kind of, up and down the neck, it's, up and down the neck instead of up and down the neck. That's kind of a different way to look at it. So yeah, it's a really cool lick. You can kind of twist it in a, bunch of different ways. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Caught my attention, and I hope you can kind of use it to for your own playing. All right, and for this next clip here that I want to show you guys, this third and final lick, this is really cool. For me, this lick is just quintessential, Angus. This is just classic. It's from If You Want Blood. It's specifically, if you want to thumb around on YouTube for it, it's specifically from the very first show of the European tour. Oh man, how do you even pronounce the name of the city? Gelsenkirchen. Wait, I need to. I realized I've read it many times. I haven't had to say it out loud. Oops. We're here for the guitar legs, not the name of the city. All right, I'm probably going to butcher that a bunch. So for this third and final lick that I want to show you, this is from the first show of the European tour that for the Power Up tour that AC/DC launched in Gelsenkirchen. And it's from If You Want Blood, the very first solo of the show, right? And, I found a video of the concert, and I'm watching it on YouTube. And, Angus is playing, and he does this really, really cool run. And I'm like, this is just classic Angus. I'm like, this is killer. Okay, so mainly the run that I want to show you, I don't know if I have it quite note for note, but it's really, really cool. Specifically, it's after the. I mean, that right there, just those kind of hammer-ons and pull-offs that Angus is doing, kind of, down the pentatonic scale. I mean, it's just, I'm like, and just the aggression too. He's not holding anything back, right? He's really kind of leading into it. Lots of attitude. Which is, that's all of Angus is playing, right? So it's that run right there. So I'll try and break it down for you as best as I can. It's really cool. Because I think the thing that kind of makes it cool is it kind of starts off not, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It's not slow, but it's like he starts it and then he kind of speeds it up. It kind of snowballs a little bit and then it kind of resolves. And then, it kind of keeps going into the next lick. So, you can kind of hear it with the. Kind of that slight change of speed, right away. So, I mean, yeah, that to me was kind of the thing that hooked me. I'm like, that's cool. So, kind of the idea behind it is, it's a pentatonic, right? So you're going to slide, doesn't really matter where, you're just going to slide to the 6th fret of G. And then what would that be? The 5th fret of the high E. But you're going to keep in mind, you're going to be barring that B as well. Just kind of, it'll be hanging out there, right? So then kind of a hammer on and pull off from 7 to 5. And then you're kind of going to hit that B string as well, which is already barred on the 5th fret, right? And then you're going to hit that, would that be the 8th fret? Yeah, the 8th fret of the high E. And then 8th fret of the B string to the 5th fret of the high E. And then this is where you kind of start going down the scale, right? So then it would be 8 to 5 on the B. And then 7 to 5. 7 on the G, 5 to the B. So. And then that would be 7 on the G, pull off to 5, 7 on D, and then 5 on G. It's kind of tricky to explain, but it's all kind of in that pentatonic, right? It's just kind of that quick, hammer-ons and pull-offs kind of thing. But to me, that kind of icing on the cake that makes that lick really cool, it's just kind of that quick snowball effect right away after that. It kind of goes pretty quick. And, it's cool too because you can move this lick kind of all around the neck, right? It doesn't have to just be an A, right? You could play it in B. You could play it in G. It doesn't have to be exact too. You can kind of get the first bit of it and then kind of do something else. You could do that bend from earlier. Like, let's go back to B. There's kind of all these different ways that you can move these licks around. You can do all those big slides too. Angus does that a lot. You see, there's all these different ways you can kind of move things around and kind of get it going. But really, that's the main thing I want you to take away from that lick. Just that kind of slight snowball effect that kind of happens with the rolling around in the pentatonic. So something cool with these licks, like I said, I've taken a lot of at least the main idea of these licks and kind of put them into my own playing. Something that was pretty, particularly cool about the Power Trip Festival was that right after the festival was when me and my band went into the studio and started to record our debut album, Keep On Rockin'. So, right away, if you listen to the record, I think it's pretty clear, the Angus Young influence, especially on a track like Live It Up, which is unapologetically AC/DC inspired, and even the solo is very Angus inspired. It's pretty obvious. The influence is definitely worn on the sleeve in that one. Because Angus is definitely a pretty prominent influence in my playing. I don't think there's really any hiding that, right? Especially if you listen to the Keep On Rockin' record, you can hear the vibrato and the pentatonic licks, all of this stuff. But especially after seeing them live, I was on such a big AC/DC kick. Some of those licks definitely kind of snuck in. But very specifically, the solo to the song "What If I Don't." It starts off with this kind of, it's in the key of B, right? It's got this kind of pentatonic flurry to start it off, and then there's this there's this specific bend, and if you listen, it is actually that bend from the Power Trip Festival. Maybe not exactly, you don't quite hear how would you describe it? You don't hear the steps in the bends. It's just kind of like one big continuous bend, but that specific bend is inspired from that Power Trip thing. So one of these, specific licks has actually been used in, recording and all of that. And I'm sure a lot of these licks will kind of pop out in live performances as well, or improvisational pieces, or, maybe even whatever happens on the next record, that kind of thing. So, these are definitely licks that you can kind of keep in your wheelhouse, expand upon, and take it in whatever direction you want. But yeah, that's kind of the main idea with these licks. You kind of take them, put your own spin on them, and see what inspires you. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I know for myself and so many other guitar players, Angus has always been a big inspiration. Hope you got, a lot of these licks under your fingers. Hope you can kind of integrate them into your own playing. And like I said, if you want to hear more of Angus's influence, check out the debut album from Pete's Diary, Keep On Rockin'. His influence is all over that record.